Hi guys, Perranporth here, and today we're going to go from Salcombe, which is just southeast of Plymouth, and we're going to head towards Perranporth. So let's get in the air. I'm in a slightly different plane today because we've got a bit of a distance to cover, and it was wanted something a little bit quicker. However, this is a stunt plane and a tail dragger, so it's a lot more difficult to fly. So we're heading towards Plymouth, which is Britain's ocean city. There are 52 other Plymouths in the world, but this one is the original. It's home to the oldest distillery in England, where they make Plymouth gin. Probably most well known, in 1620, Pilgrim Fathers left Plymouth on the way to America and established Plymouth Colony, which was the second English settlement after Roanoke. Obviously it's now the USA. Now during that voyage, John Howland fell overboard and was almost lost at sea, but he managed to grab hold of part of the rigging, which gave the crew enough time to rescue him with a boat hook. Now if he had died, we wouldn't have people like Franklin D. Roosevelt, George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and Humphrey Bogart, as they are all direct descendants of him. Then we have another famous resident, Scott of the Antarctic. He was born in Plymouth, and he led the first ever British expedition to reach the South Pole in 1912. He became world famous because he led the first successful exploration of the Antarctic on the Discovery expedition, but then they lost their life on the second expedition in 1912 while they were making the return journey from the South Pole. They were actually beaten to the South Pole by a Norwegian, Roald Amundsen. They're stated to be the first people to reach the South Pole. Just playing around with the plane a little bit. I don't know if you've ever done that with a VR headset in, but it makes you quite dizzy. I won't be doing that again. One thing that Plymouth can claim fame for is the first female Member of Parliament. In 1919, Nancy Astor was elected the first ever female Member of Parliament. She's also responsible for building many children's homes. Some more famous voyages that left from Plymouth was James Cook, Captain Cook's. He left Plymouth on each of his 3 famous voyages. After the Battle of Waterloo and the Napoleonic Wars, Napoleon was captured, and he was held captive on the HMS Bellerophon, and that was actually moored in the Plymouth Sound in 1815. And thousands of people in the UK wanted to see him because they were actually pro-Napoleon, because he was all about getting rid of the monarchy. And people would take to the water in small boats to try and get a better view of him. And one day it's reported that 8,000 people tried to approach the ship in small boats from Plymouth. Charles Darwin spent 3 months living in Plymouth before he set sail on HMS Beagle, as he went off to put together his theory of evolution. It's quite a good plane for views. A little bit concerned that there isn't a cover over me, but I'm pretty sure the plane does have a cover over it. Again, I have removed the weather Actually, currently a massive storm going on outside in the real world. I don't fancy battling that to have a scenic tour of Plymouth and Devon and Cornwall. A very, very famous resident of Plymouth was Sir Francis Drake. He was Mayor of Plymouth. He actually helped create one of the first municipal water supplies in the country. They built a leat, which is a man-made river. It was about 7 foot wide and about 18 miles long. The whole cost of the project was £300, which included like compensating landowners. And rumour has it, or legend has it, that Francis Drake mounted on a white horse rode to the town as the waters flowed behind him. He was the mastermind behind the defeat of the Spanish Armada, and he was also the first Englishman to circumnavigate the world in command of a crew. Plymouth itself has the highest concentration of cobbled streets in England. It's also home to the number one covered slipway, where a traditional boatyard has been operated by Stirling and Son. It is the oldest remaining covered slipway in the world and is a scheduled ancient monument, which is the same classification that Stonehenge has. So in the from 1698 to 1703, Plymouth was home for the world's first offshore lighthouse. It was called the Eddystone Lighthouse, and it was constructed of wood. The replacement lighthouse, if you get to a certain height on it, you can actually see the remains of the Eddystone Lighthouse. Now, just as we come up to Devonport here, which is technically a neighbouring town, it's strategically important to the Royal Navy. It has the largest operational naval base in Western Europe, Her Majesty's Naval Base. Devonport HMNB Devonport. Now, during World War II, due to the city's naval importance, as you can imagine, the German bombers targeted Plymouth significantly. It was actually known as the Plymouth Blitz. A sporting fact, Trevor Francis was born in Plymouth and was the first player to command a £1 million transfer fee in English football. He played as a forward for Birmingham City, and then Nottingham Forest purchased him for a six-figure sum. He ended up scoring a winning diving header in the European Cup final in 1979 against Malmo, the Swedish side. He also played for England. As we head into Cornwall, this area is famous for mining, most commonly tin, but also china clay. In fact, Plymouth and by connection Cornwall was one of the first places for the English porcelain creation. So one of the places that we're due to fly over shortly is the Eden Project, which is large biospheres which have various environments in, showing different plants and it's built inside a clay pit, which was in use for over 160 years. In fact, in 1981, the pit where the Eden Project is now located was used by the BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, as the planet surface of Magrathea from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. If you want to see more of the Eden Project, it's actually, since 2009, been available to fully explore on Google Street View. Most importantly, the World Pasty Championships, which is an international competition to find the best Cornish pasties, has been held at the Eden Project since 2012. Not entirely sure how you can have Cornish pasties made internationally. I'm sure they're protected. Here we go. Here's the Eden Project. We'll just bank round to it. At the time of construction, the scaffolding used to build the biomes actually held the Guinness World Record of being the world's largest freestanding scaffold structure. It needed 46,000 poles, and they would have stretched end to end for 230 miles, which is almost the distance between St Austell and London. So St Austell is the town just here. Now there's a church in St Austell, the Holy Trinity Church, and has the Mengu stone, or the meeting stone, which was where witches were burnt, important news was told, proclamations, announcements. If there was a loose livestock, it would be impounded in the area and would be sold from that stone if not claimed. And John Wesley was also said to have preached from there. The 160-year-old St Austell Brewery is one of the oldest still family-run breweries in Britain. It's been brewing since 1851. Now, we talked about China clay earlier. The largest use of China clay is in the production of paper. It's used as a coating to create the glossy look on magazine covers. I think we're going over some pits now. So there's a famous pit called a Bodelver pit, and it produces a pinkish red clay. And that is famous for it gives the Financial Times its pinky colour. And in fact, after oil, China clay is the United Kingdom's second largest mineral export. In Cornwall, it's the largest, apart from those internationally famous pasties. However, between the 1500s and 1800s, most of St Austell's population were involved in tin mining, and the demand was so high that Queen Elizabeth I invited German miners to join, and so now there's a lot of local family names like Lobb, Kessel, Stark, Waldron, which have got German origins. We're actually getting to a point where we can see water on both sides now, as the Cornwall narrows. Just looking at some of these mines. So we're going to be coming to land in Perranporth, which the name just comes from Porth Piran, which is Cornish for the cove of Saint Piran, who is the patron saint of Cornwall. Legend says that he was cast into the sea from Ireland, tied to a millstone, and he washed up on the sandy shores of Perranporth. He built a Christian oratory in the dunes, and the story goes that his first disciples were a badger, a fox and a bear. And the ruins of this church, which date from the 6th century, are still visible in the sand dunes. As we talked about tin mining, it is stated that St Piran discovered tin. In fact, Perranporth had 2 working mines in the 19th century. St Piran's Day is celebrated on the 5th of March. Just want to avoid some wind turbines. Cleared them. Perranporth is known for its waves. In fact, it attracts surfers from far and wide. But the first UK surfboards actually originate from Perranporth. So we spoke previously about South African surfers coming to Jersey and it becoming sort of the national pastime for Jersey. But after World War One, soldiers that were returning from the Western Front told of these South African surfers that they'd met there and swapped stories with. And Perranporth's local undertaker, builder Tom Tremerwan, he was inspired, and he designed the first UK belly boards or surfboards, and he made them out of coffin lids. So Perranporth Airfield, where we're going to land, was built during World War II as an RAF fighter station. It's now obviously a civilian airfield, and it just sits on a plateau above the town. Now, this is a tail dragger aircraft, and I am absolutely horrendous at landing them, so there is about a 90% chance that this is not going to end well. The problem with these is that you lose your sight of where you're going as the nose of the aircraft sits higher. There's a runway here somewhere. Ooh. Oh, bounce. Bounce. We're not definitely not winning any awards for this. But let's just pretend that everything went absolutely perfectly there. Thank you for joining me again on this leg. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. And next time we will be going towards Land's End. Thanks, guys. Bye.